Creepy Encounters, Reddit's New Year's Eve stories. New Year's Eve, a time filled with hope, endless possibilities and celebrations, but for some, when the balloons fall and the countdown ends, something far darker begins. The following are real-life accounts from Reddit's Creepy Encounters thread, stories that will make you rethink what midnight really means. So dim the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself for tales that might make you want to stay home this New Year's Eve. After all, who knows what lurks in the shadows at the turn of the year? It was supposed to be a quiet, snowy celebration. A group of friends had rented a cozy cabin deep in the woods to toast the new year. They lit a roaring fire, sipped champagne, and laughed as the clock ticked closer to midnight. But then someone noticed him, a shadowy figure standing outside in the snowfall, just far enough to be shrouded in mystery, but close enough to be unnerving. "Is that someone in the woods?" one of the friends asked, nervously peering through the large glass window. The others brushed it off, laughing it away as just a passerby or a trick of the snow. But as the minutes ticked by, the figure didn't move. It only stood there staring, unmoving, unbothered by the biting cold. Midnight came, the joyous countdown erupted, and fireworks bloomed in the sky. The friends had momentarily forgotten the figure until someone froze in their tracks. The shadowy stranger had vanished. Curious but cautious, they looked for signs, footprints in the snow perhaps. What they found instead chilled them to the core. Footprints led to the window where the stranger had been watching, yet they abruptly stopped. No retreat, no scattered path, just an end, as though the figure had simply disappeared into the icy air. No one slept that night with the unsettling question ringing in their minds. Was the stranger ever really there? Not everyone spends New Year's Eve surrounded by revelers and champagne. Some prefer the quiet solitude of home, away from the chaos. One Redditor recounts how their peaceful night descended into terror. The night was calm. They had settled into their favorite chair with a warm blanket, ready to ring in the new year with a quiet toast to themselves. But just as the clock approached midnight, the phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but curiosity won. "Happy New Year," a raspy voice said when they answered. It was unsettling, as though the words weren't a cheerful wish but an eerie warning. Before they could respond, the line went dead. Minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, the voice was clearer. It described their house. The lights were still on, the blanket draped over their lap, the drink sitting on the table. Every detail was correct, and yet there was no one outside. They hung up, heart racing, locking all the doors and shutting every blind in the house. When the phone rang one last time before midnight struck, they didn't pick up. The voicemail they checked the next morning, however, offered no comfort. A voice, calm yet laced with malice, simply whispered, "See you again next year." The caller was never identified. When you're hosting a house party on New Year's Eve, it's easy to lose track of who's who. One group of friends discovered just how chillingly easy it was when a stranger slipped into their celebration unnoticed. The night was lively. Music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses filled the room. No one noticed the unfamiliar man among them at first. "He seemed to know someone," one of them later explained. "We assumed someone else brought him." The stranger didn't speak much. He stayed in the background, blending into the crowd almost too perfectly. It was only after the countdown, as the party began to wind down, that someone asked, "Who invited that guy in the black jacket?" Blank faces stared back. No one had invited him. Panic simmered among the remaining guests. But what was even stranger was that he wasn't there anymore. Searching the house revealed odd clues. A glass of champagne left untouched but still full. A torn piece of black fabric caught on a doorframe and, most unsettlingly, a photo on someone's phone taken earlier that evening. In the background stood the stranger, staring directly at the camera with a chilling grin. No one remembered taking that photo, and no one ever saw him leave. What is it about midnight, the exact moment when one year crosses into the next, that seems to invite the unexplainable? Is it simply superstition, or could there be something deeper? Many believe that transitions, like the change from year to year, could represent a thinning veil between worlds. Maybe midnight isn't just the gateway to something new, but also to something old and unseen. Something waiting for its chance to slip through unnoticed amidst celebration. For one New Year's reveler, a seemingly innocent midnight tradition led to a series of unsettling events. The story begins with their decision to write down resolutions sealed in an envelope, a ritual they had practiced for years. This year, though, they couldn't remember writing their resolution. At the countdown, they opened their envelope, only to find something strange. Scrawled on the paper in messy handwriting they didn't recognize were the words, "You've been warned. Keep your promise." Although unnerved, they shrugged it off as a prank. But over the next few weeks, odd things started to happen. Objects went missing, reappearing in odd places. They would wake up to find their resolution note moved from its hiding spot. One night, they awoke to the sound of scratching at their window. On the glass, faintly, as though from the inside, the same warning was written in condensation. "You promised." The resolution they didn't remember writing had now become a demand, and they knew one thing for certain: they wouldn't break it. Not every New Year's adventure leads to a lively party. Some take an outright horrifying turn, as experienced by two friends on a road trip to make it to a midnight celebration. The trip began uneventfully. The roads seemed strangely quiet as they drove along dark highways, occasionally passing lonely towns that appeared abandoned. But then, they noticed something odd. The same gas station they had passed miles ago reappeared. Initial laughter turned to discomfort as they continued driving, only for the same landmarks to appear again. It was as though they were trapped in an endless loop. The frustration mounted until, in desperation, they stopped to check the GPS. But when they stepped out of the car to get a better signal, they froze. The air was impossibly still, the silence deafening. It wasn't just the roads, they realized. Everything was wrong. When they eventually found their way back to civilization hours later, midnight had long passed. And once they checked the photos they had taken along the way, they noticed something chilling. Their car wasn't in the pictures. Nothing from their journey appeared at all. To this day, they can't explain where they were or why their trip wasn't documented, almost as if it never happened. There's something about holidays like New Year's Eve that amplifies the eeriness of strange events. Maybe it's the long, dark winter nights. Maybe it's the heightened emotions and expectations. Or maybe it's something else entirely. Something that waits for moments when we let down our guard to make its move. Have you ever noticed that unsettling feeling during the holidays? The sense that you're being watched or that something isn't quite right? Perhaps it isn't your imagination after all. For many, New Year's Eve comes with traditions. Some are innocent enough, like writing resolutions or a toast at midnight, but one Redditor shared a ritual that they'll never perform again. The tradition was something passed down in their family, standing in front of a mirror at exactly midnight to see a glimpse of your future. That year, they decided to try it for themselves. They stood before their bathroom mirror as the clock struck 12, staring into their own reflection. At first, nothing happened, but then the room grew colder. Their reflection seemed off. The face staring back at them started to feel unfamiliar, almost as though someone else was standing behind the glass. And then it happened. In the reflection, they saw movement, an impossibly tall, shadow-like figure looming over their shoulder. They turned quickly to look, but nothing was there. Looking back into the mirror, they saw the figure moving closer, closer, until they smashed the glass out of sheer panic. The mirror shattered, and though the figure disappeared, they swore that for days after, they felt like they were being followed. Even now, they refuse to be in a room with mirrors past midnight. As we wrap up these tales of New Year's Eve horror, one thing is certain: the transition into a new year isn't always as harmless as it seems. Whether it's a midnight caller, a vanishing stranger, or the shadow lurking in a mirror, there's always something watching when the clock strikes 12. So, this New Year's Eve, as you ring in the celebrations, ask yourself, what are you letting in with the new year? And remember, some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Have you had any creepy New Year's encounters? Share your story in the comments if you dare. Midnight is coming soon, are you ready?